Okay, now we're going to discuss irrevocable trust versus the corporation. We're going to do a comparative between the two entities, the trust and the corporation. But before we do that, I want to go back here to the rule of perpetuity just for 1 second. Now it is, excuse me, it is as I explained it. However, people will simplify the rule against perpetuity to simply mean that your trust cannot span over 25 years. Now that is it's difficult to put it that simply for me because I understand that they have certain statutory trusts that can go for generation to generation beyond the 25 years. They're called dynasty trusts. However, I don't know of any private trusts that go that long, and I don't see the IRS allowing that in the private trust forum because of the difficulties it would pose for them. Okay, and I've also heard that there's a 27-year time span, so there's nothing's really set in stone. But that 21-year lapse of claim of ownership, that is the most solid form of the rule against perpetuity that I can explain to you. Okay? But again, some people will simply say, well, your trust can't last forever, and the rule is generally 25 years. So we're going to go to irrevocable trust versus the corporation. All right? So your trust is governed by your trust indenture, and the corporation is governed by the state or federal law. The state and or federal law. Okay? In your trust, how you administer your trust determines its taxability, meaning, what you write off, the nature of your trust, basically how you administer it, and if you choose to make your trust amenable to all of the taxing authorities. Okay? I'm going to leave that there. Corporations must pay taxes because of their corporate charter. Whenever you get a corporate charter, and you basically, when you form a corporation, you submit your corporation to the state, to the Secretary of State, and they give you a charter, and they basically charge you for that charter, and that charter is under the U.S. jurisdiction. We covered that earlier. It's under the jurisdiction of the United States, and they can tax it as they please. Okay. Your trust can operate in complete privacy. Okay. Corporation is in the public sector because your corporation, your bylaws, and the body of your trust, a copy of that is sent to the state for approval and for your charter. So again, you put it under that jurisdiction, that public jurisdiction, that U.S. jurisdiction that makes it a part of the public sector. Now, there are private corporations, I must say. How they operate is that they have another arm of the corporation that operates on more of a private level. Your trustees are not automatically required to submit any reports to outside authorities. Okay, the way you administer your trust, your private trust, your irrevocable private trust, is nobody's business but the grantor, the trustees, and the beneficiaries. However, in the corporations, they have to submit annual reports, and that's at a minimum. Okay, in an irrevocable private trust, you are under no mandate to confer with beneficiaries for the trust affairs. Okay, again, that's an irrevocable private trust. For a statutory trust, the laws, your local law. So if you have a trust in California, then California trust law would dictate what your relationship will be and what disclosures you have to make to your beneficiaries will be. Okay, but again, in a private trust, you have no mandate to confer with beneficiaries on how you run the trust or how the trustee runs the trust. In a corporation, the beneficiaries can inquire at any given time as to the affairs of the trust. Okay, in a private trust, changes in trust contract need no court or external authority or approval. And that's in a statutory trust as well. As long as the indentured state what the terms are for amending the indentures, then that's what operates, or that's what dictates how those indentures are dealt with. In a corporation, changes in agreement must be done by directing officers' authority or shareholder vote. In a trust, the family can operate under the family business concept without any foreign interference. And to me, this is one of the biggest advantages of a trust. A trust can be formed strictly for your family's benefit and for your family's advancement, for your immediate family and for your extended family. Okay, whereas a corporation, state rules and corporate charter dictate membership. So the state gets to tell you who can and who cannot be a member of your corporation. General trust operational guidelines. So when you establish a trust, the more people you have to be involved, the better. You should try to have 2 trustees and a general manager. The general manager will certify trust documents and correspondence because trustees cannot certify documents that the trust executes. Trust administration is a team effort, and it can be an important part of organizing a family. When you start to read into trust law, you'll see that it is an amazing tool to organize families. I don't know if anyone remembers Paris Hilton, who was or is well, I don't really know what she is. She's a celebrity, but as far as, well, she's an heiress to the Hilton Hotel empire. And she was getting buck wild for a while. And all of a sudden, she got back in line. She did a few days in jail, I believe, and then she got back in line. Rumor has it that, of course, her family has a trust. And to put her back in line, to curb and stop her shenanigans, she was threatened with expulsion from the family trust. Okay? So we can see how the power of trust in a family setting can be used to modify the behavior of people who stand to lose a lot through the trust, through disinheritance. If the family works together to generate revenue for everyone through a business, for example, it will act as a unifying vehicle. The families that control much of the Earth's resources today operate through trust. Cornelius Vanderbilt, John Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, Andrew Carnegie, and Henry Ford all operated through trust. So much so that the federal government initiated antitrust acts to stop the growth of power companies involved in trust, or to stop the growth of power these companies who were involved in trust were gaining. So we're going to look at some cases that dictated United States involvement because these companies were gaining so much power. And one of them you might recognize. Okay, here's the case right here. United States versus Workmen's Amalgamated Council of New Orleans. Okay. United States versus Chesapeake Oil and Fuel Company. Northern Securities Company versus United States. Hale versus Hinkle. Standard Oil of New Jersey versus United States. And by the way, which broke up the company based on geography and contributed to the panic of 1910 and through 1911. That's pretty powerful. United States versus American Tobacco Company. Federal Baseball Club versus National League. United States versus National City Lines. United States versus AT&T. United States versus Microsoft. So as you can see, when people start to run things in trust, immense power can be gained, so much so that the United States itself sees fit to get involved and find out exactly what they can do to either curb this power or stop it. So now we'll go back and we'll continue to read. This can be a powerful tool for you and your family with study and practice of trust administration concepts. The reason of trust involvement goes into a spiritual realm that those who rule the world realize and implement. So here's proof. I want to show you something really quick. Okay, this is from a book called Passing the Buck. I mentioned this book earlier. All right, and I want you to go here in this red circle. First of all, let's read right here, and I cannot highlight this, so I hope you can follow my cursor. Okay. Found hidden in the antiquity of history is one of the hottest political footballs of all time. This subject remains questionable even today. Without bringing it to your attention, though, you would miss the background of what compels the super rich to use trust. Okay. The rich, now we're going into the red circle right here. Okay. The rich are motivated to create wealth so they can reincarnate back into their own bloodline and thus inherit their resource structure. They not only keep their material comfort, but also their leverage. Now, family, I want to stop for a second because this should change your whole outlook on what is happening in the social structure. Why do people like Bill Gates or Warren Buffett continue to amass wealth, even though if they just sat on their butts right now, they could not spend all of the wealth that they have? Who are they accumulating that wealth for? And what is our outlook on spirituality? Is it really accurate? If you don't know this, if you don't know what I just read, then where is our spiritual trajectory? Where did we get our spiritual values from, and why weren't we taught this? Why wasn't this ingrained in us? Because this will give you a whole different motivation in your even reason for living, and in how you would look at your children. Are we today, as said African Americans, looking out for our children's welfare? Are we looking out for our own welfare? Now, remind you, this book is written by people who are very educated, who are very, very educated in trust, who are very educated in law. This is a law book. This is not a spiritual book. So why is this in here? Very casually. And if you ever get this book, which I can make available to you, but if you ever get this book, there's also other spiritual aspects mentioned in the book. Okay? A lot of people frown upon spirituality mentioned in unison with wealth. And even me, when I heard the two used together as one and the same, I was like, that doesn't make sense. It makes sense. Once you get into studies such as trust studies, these things will make sense. Okay, I don't want to belabor that, but I'm telling you, this should change your whole outlook. This should change your whole outlook on why you need trust, first of all, and how you need to assert yourself in society in order to create a future for yourself and your children and your bloodline in general.